Hello everybody. Today I want to explore with you the subject of tranquility. But before I go into that exploration, I want to thank my subscribers. Thank you very much. I hope I won't disappoint you. And I also want to thank Juliet, who sent me these lovely, lovely flowers. Thank you, Juliet. So kind of you to do that. And such a kind letter of thanks. So greatly appreciated. So now, as we're still fighting the coronavirus and being edgy and being a bit nervous and being a bit lost, let's see what this tranquility is all about. And before we explore and go any further, I want to read something of Carl Jung, who after all was a master of exploring unconsciousness, dreams, wholeness. Sorry about this noise, because I'm living in the very close to the main road. You see, here we are. That's you have to be tranquil not to be disturbed by it, so I hope you won't mind. So I will read this piece of Carl Jung, which I will break it with you as we go along. So let me just put my glasses on. Very useful thing to have in my time of life. Man thinks of himself as holding the psyche in the hollow of his hand. He dreams of making a science of her, but in reality she is the mother and the maker, the psychical subject, and even the possibility of consciousness itself. The psyche reaches so far beyond the boundary line of consciousness that the latter could easily be compared to the island in the ocean. While the island is small and narrow, the ocean is immensely wide and deep, so that if it is a question of space, it does not matter whether the gods are inside or outside. So Carl Jung, a very interesting a Swiss psychiatrist who spent all his life talking about it, exploring his own psyche, his own wholeness, his own capacity for tranquility, was hugely immersed in helping people to integrate as many parts of themselves as possible. So he was very much interested in knocking down the ego-centered type of living into something else, which is probably more self-centered. So let's see whether we can do the same. I always think that nowadays, you see, we have enormous amount of popularity with the words tranquility. You know, we have spas we can go to, and there's always been tranquility in the name of the spa. You know, we will have experience of helping our body, and people will promise us we will achieve tranquility after 5 days in chapness, for instance, or you know, looking and gazing into the heaven, or standing on our head, or doing yoga, which is all terribly useful and fantastic exercises and fantastic experiences. But I'm just wondering whether real tranquility could be achieved. There would be an aspect of maybe achieving equilibrium or harmony, and there is lots of wonderful words, you know. Tranquility maybe is connected to the word serenity. So what is exactly tranquility? Depends on what is the price we have to pay to achieve tranquility. And you see, it's quite an enormous price, because tranquility is connected to the kind of journey between the ego and the self. The ego by itself, the ego-centered life, which is, even from a spiritual point of view, would be the looking for the peace and tranquility outside ourselves. Even in our Western civilization and religions, We look into above, at skies to find gold. It is always somewhere outside our reach. Eastern civilization, Eastern cultures, Buddhists and Zen Buddhists and various other spiritual orientation like Suzuki's or Indian, they are more concentrated into deeper senses, into going down rather than up. So even from that angle and that point of view, there is an enormous difference between approaching tranquility. There is merit in both, but above all, I want to explore the merit of facing our own shadow. What is the shadow? One of the lady I work with always perpetually had the dreams that she tried to kill various female figures which appeared in her dreams, particularly if they were a bit not pleasant. And what she was actually doing, as I explained to her, was that she tried to axe from her consciousness those parts of her which she did not like, which she always said, well, it's not me actually. And you know yourself how often you can say when you debate problems in the marriage or problems with children, I don't know what happened, it wasn't me. It really is not. That's something funny that part of me I don't recognize. Well, clearly you don't. And many of us don't. Because if you think about it, how much of our self is unknown? Let me tell you, more clever people than me always say 80-90% of our self is in the unconsciousness. It's in the realm of psyche, as you would put it. 80-90%. When I've learned that first time, I got terrified. Because you see, I'm a person who believed my brain. That's how I survived. My brain was very important to me. I'm a person of my time. But for the woman to just live in the head, it's a bit dangerous. I was not interested in knowing in a deeper sense or knowing myself, because I, for years, could not distinguish the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Whereas the knowledge is easily obtained, you see. If you have a bit of an educated brain and you know where to find the books, you either buy them or you go to library and borrow them, yeah? And if you've got a bit of a good brain and an ability to remember, you can memorize pages and pages of them. But would that give you tranquility? Or would that give you a sense of peace? I doubt it. I didn't get it, and definitely didn't observe with other people that did. So what is this tranquility connected to? It's connected to knowledge. It's connected to one's own self. So if it is about 80 and 90% of us, maybe, just maybe, we can look, as I mentioned before, into our dreams as part of knowing ourselves. And that is useful because you see, in the dreams we come as a whole and we can sort of connect to it. So important to make it hugely available to us. I always say, people say, well, I don't remember the dreams. One of my colleague doctors say, take vitamin B6 before you go to bed. That's useful to remember. Carl Jung once said that man himself is a danger to himself. That man has to study man because all original evil comes from man. It's a very daring statement, but how right he was. So if our sins are actually at the bottom of lack of tranquility, it's useful to study that. So basically, we have to be connected to the heart. rather than our brain. The fact that we are at the moment enamored with the ears is a good thing, because there probably is quite a lot of knowledge and experiential wisdom in depth we can use by listening to good Buddhist talk or good experience of psychologists who are Buddhist orientated, or indeed good Christian talks. Because if we talk about equilibrium and if we talk about tranquility, I think that Jesus Christ is a very good example of a man who had experienced tranquility, because you see, Buddha or Jesus Christ knew themselves. They were lucky, as I always say to people. I can only hope to have a bit of that knowledge. But he knew, and even knowing what is in front of him did not disturb his tranquility, because he had complete knowledge of what the nature of man is and what the nature of God is. That's why it's worth probably kind of following a proper teachings and meditate upon it. When we go back to the shadow carries what I call a personal life. The intellect and the ego carries more collective. It navigates external. It carries the one-dimensional understanding how to survive. It carries a lot of good stuff, but it would not give us insight. What is going on inside us? So let me just read at the end something which Maria Rilke said about that connection to life itself. We have no reason to harbor any mistrust against our world, for it is not against us. If it has terrors, they are our terrors. If it has abysses, their abysses belongs to us. If they are dangerous, we must try to love them. And only if we arrange our lives in accordance with the principle which tells us that we must always trust in the difficult, what now appears to us as the most alien will become our most intimate and trusted experience. How could we forget those ancient myths that stand at the beginning of all races? The myths about dragons that at the last moment are transformed into princesses. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to set us act and to see us as just at one time with a beauty and courage. Perhaps everything that frightened us is in the deepest essence something helpless that wants our love. And in a way inside us is that helpless part of our shadow, which needs to be loved through the courage. So tranquility is connected to courage. So we can integrate those parts of us to become more peaceful and tranquil. So if we are not interested in any connection, maybe through the body, maybe through the instinct, maybe from a point of view of working on ourselves, we might be just very one-dimensional creatures whose peace and tranquility will be foreign to us. Seneca once said, "Nothing what human surprises me because I'm only a man." And I think that that's self-reflection would help us to knock about our persona and possibly have a giggle about our pomposity from the point of view of our intellect, so we are not as explosive in self-righteousness. The tranquility comes through stillness of heart and mind, not through busyness. So maybe as we go through that, we can go to the serenity prayer. So let's pray. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Bye for now.